Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. And today we are really excited. We love talking with animators. And today we have the director and animator behind the new movie Flow. We have Gints Zilbalodis here with us. And thank you so much for coming to talk with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, this is your first time on the podcast. I'd like to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got started becoming an animator.
Uh, well, uh, yeah, I started pretty early. I first draw some shorts, like very si silly things when I think I was 8. I did some animation in Flash, uh, which at the time was quite popular, and those are very silly things, very short films. But maybe at the age of 15, I started to take it more seriously. I made like my first proper short, which is still on my Vimeo, which is a little bit embarrassing that you have this. You can see these shorts which I made as a teenager, and they're
Ah,
compared to work I'm doing now. But I think it's good for people to see that hopefully there's been some progress and improvement. But I was interested in filmmaking in general, but I felt like with animation I have more freedom.
yeah.
I can like tell more fantastical stories. I can uh, be more expressive with the images and have more time and like not worry about like the sun setting or the big crew waiting on my decision. I can like actually like consider multiple choices. And so yeah, I made a bunch of short films. I made a short film which actually ended up being the inspiration for Flow, about a cat who's afraid of water, and uh,
Oh,
and then that was my last hand-drawn film. After that, I switched to 3D animation because I was really interested in using the camera and moving it in kind of very dynamic ways, and I felt very constrained with what I could do in hand drawn. And also my drawing skills are not very good, so
mm.
I was kind of drawing like stick figures and stuff. And so that first 3D film called Priorities got into a bunch of festivals. I got some awards, and because of that, I could get some funding. And instead of going to university, I decided to make a bunch of short films, and they were kind of my unofficial film school that
Wow.
a bunch of techniques and kind of different ways of telling stories. Uh, and after a few shorts, I decided to try and make my first feature, which was Away, and that was designed. Like I made the whole story, but I decided to split it in 4 chapters and actually fund them and make them as 4 different short films. And that was kind of my way of tricking myself, and that or kind of having this safety net in case it doesn't work out. At least I have 1 or 2 shorts instead of one unfinished feature, because I wasn't even sure if I would be able to pull it off, because I did everything on that film myself on a very small budget. And it was also, I think, easier for funding, where it was like less risk for people
So were you
to
basically
trust me.
self-taught as far as animation?
Uh, Basically, yeah. Well, I went to an art high school. We had
Oh,
like
okay.
drawing and painting classes, and but yeah, with animation, I kind of learned by making these films, and my goal with Away was to do these different tasks, so that eventually, if I would get the opportunity to work with a team, I'd understand all these different skills like music and sound and editing and lighting. So it did really help me to like work with the team on Flow.
So, did you have particular animated films that inspired you growing up?
Uh, yeah, I think I'm more inspired by live action films than animation.
Okay.
Of course, I'm a big fan of Ghibli and Miyazaki and and Isao Takahata, and I guess mostly like Japanese animation, like
Okay.
Satoshi Kon uh, and yeah, but a lot of also European films. more kind of some short films, which I feel like there's more experimentation in the shorts than features.
Mm,
But my most of my inspiration is from like live action filmmakers who like don't do like conventional coverage. They tell the story in a very specific way, and using the camera and like and so like Alfonso Cuarón and Kurosawa and Scorsese, people like that.
yeah, yeah. So how did Away come about? How did that all happen?
Away?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Uh, as I mentioned, I decided to make my first feature to kind of, well, because all these shorts I'd made, the stories, I think they were better suited for like a larger format. I feel like there wasn't enough time to develop the characters and to like have enough like detail in the storytelling, and I decided to make a feature. But knowing that I would have very limited resources, I decided to like set the story around things that are easy to animate, to have these kind of limitations in a way, which is great actually, where in animation you have infinite possibilities, you can do what you want, but to have like some limitations, for example, I knew that it would be quite complicated to do walk cycles. So the main character is riding a motorcycle for a big part of the film, and that is pretty easy to animate.
Mm,
And that's why there's also very few characters, because then it's less work for me. But all these things actually like contribute to I think what makes the film kind of unique and interesting, where I have this very sparse and lonely atmosphere and so, yeah, it was that story is also quite personal to me because it's about this character alone on an island, and he's trying to like find connection with others and trying to reach humanity, like reconnect with people. And that was like me making that film alone, kind of, and having done this film, it allowed me to travel and all over the world and meet people. So it ended up being like really, it wasn't really intentional at first, but I kind of discovered this while I was making the film. And with my next film, Flow, I was more kind of consciously exploring the same theme, but kind of developing, picking it up where I had left off with Away, as the
mhm,
main character reaches these people. That's where the film ends. But with Flow, we see this main character who used to be very independent and self-sufficient. Now, in the beginning of the film, it meets these other characters and has to actually figure out how to coexist with them. And this time it was more kind of conscious to use my own personal experiences in telling this story.
okay. Yeah, so with Flow, I really liked that it felt like lush and vibrant, but without feeling the need to be like hyper realistic. Like it still had its own unique artistic style. And I'm just wondering how you kind of developed the style for that movie.
Yeah, the style was developed for a long time. Uh, Basically, like quite close to the like the finish, when the film was finished, we kept kind of finding and discovering ways to improve it. And I was learning this new software as well. And my goal was to create a very immersive uh, and richly detailed world, but to have some abstraction and stylization
Yeah,
and make it feel real. But actually, if you like pause and look closely, you'll see that there are these brush strokes on
I
these
could feel that. Yeah.
textures, and we only use detail where it's really necessary. So in some parts, we try to like reduce the amount of detail where it might be distracting, and uh, and compared to a way like you see a lot more kind of like there's more like detail on the ground. There's the water is more kind of immersive, and which was a big challenge to figure out how to do the water, which also looks quite real, but it's also somewhat expressive. It's helping us to understand these characters and how they feel, and I wanted to have it feel like handmade, almost like these characters are drawn, and so we don't have like realistic fur. It's more like a suggestion of how a fur could look like, and
Yeah.
so this means that we can't really like take something like from like anything from real life. We have to design everything because everything is has to fit with this style, which actually makes it more difficult. But what makes it easier that like we don't have to like make it hyper real. We can go into abstraction and only suggest certain things, which
Yeah.
make it faster.
I
In
like that. So what made you focus on a cat as your lead character?
Well, it's I wanted to tell the story about a character who is very independent and has to learn how to work together, and I think cats are just perfect for that. They're very as like the beginning of this character arc. It was a great fit as this independent character, and also like the idea of the cats being afraid of water is something that I think most people understand. We don't really need to explain that.
Right.
And because there's no dialogue, it's important that there's clarity and we understand what's going on and what these characters are thinking and feeling and the cat's fear of water is something we don't need to explain.
Mm,
And it also allows me to tell a story without, I think, real antagonists. It's really the cat versus nature kind of a
mm,
story, which is more interesting to me. Having these characters be kind of flawed, but they're not just good or bad. I think there's more kind of in this gray area which I find more interesting. So,
yeah. Did you
yeah,
struggle to decide whether to have the animals talk or not?
it wasn't like a decision really. From the get-go, I knew that there would be no dialogue because
Okay.
I've never done dialogue in any of the films I've done, and so it's actually a lot easier for me to tell stories like this. And so for that reason, I knew that there would be no people in the story because then they would need to speak. And so it wasn't like, yeah, it wasn't a decision at all. It's something that excited me to tell the story, really, because I feel like we've seen these talking animal films so many times, and we've also seen a story like this from a human perspective, but seeing it from like a real cat's perspective, I think is something that I hadn't seen, and that really excited me to make this film.
Was was any of the animals more challenging to animate than than others?
Well, cats are complicated because they're kind of they don't seem to follow any real rules. They're very flexible and you almost it almost feels like there's no uh, like uh, like skeleton in the cat. They can
Mm,
like bend and squash and stretch and we also like understand and we know cats and dogs so well. So we would perceive any inconsistencies or imperfections. But with the other animals, I think we had a little bit more freedom.
mm, that makes
But
sense.
it was actually also quite complicated to do the bird, and we have actually
Yeah.
not one, but we have many birds, and to make the feathers work is quite a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you hope people take away from the film?
Well, um, it's really about the experience of going on this journey with these characters, and it's about this cat kind of learning to trust others and overcoming its fears, but it's not like a simple message like that. I wanted to avoid that. So there's also this dog who starts out on the opposite journey as the cat goes on. Or in the beginning of the film, the dog is very trustful and always looking for someone to tell them what to do, but actually it ends up being more independent. So my goal is to show that there are positives and negatives to both of these ideas of being independent and also working together, and hopefully the audience can figure out that the truth is somewhere in the middle. But it's also like we see the cat overcoming these obstacles and fears, but even after going all that, it still has this anxiety. It still has this like you can't change who you are really. There are some things about yourself that I think I wanted to show that you can actually learn to live with and to accept, and maybe you can allow others to help to support you, and maybe that's okay. So I wanted to find an ending that feels kind of honest, that doesn't feel just happy or just sad, and because I don't feel like life is like that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Was it hard animating the water? That was very impressive.
Yeah, that's the biggest technical challenge, and we
Uh-huh.
develop all kinds of new tools for this, and it's made by only two people, and like most like big
Wow.
animated films, there's a big team of VFX artists, but in this case, we only had two people doing that, and water is complicated because it's really hard to control. It's hard to like make it into a shape that you want, and because you need to understand the physics, uh, and you need to find people who know the physics, but they also understand storytelling and understand aesthetics and how to make it look interesting and beautiful and not just realistic. And there's not like a single type of water. We have like the puddle, we have the lake, we have the river, we have the sea, and all these different things have like we had to develop different systems for them. And and there's so much water. It's just the volume of different shots we have. And also because some of these shots are very long, some are 5 minutes long, and the camera starts out being close to the cat, and it follows the cat underwater, and then it flies up into the air, and have these transitions within the same shot, and have all these simulations. That was like a big challenge how to figure that out.
Hmm. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking with us. Congrats on the film. I think people are really going to enjoy it, and especially my any animal lover, especially will love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies. I'd like to thank Gitz for coming on the podcast. This was so much fun to get to talk with him. I hope you enjoyed it. You can check out all of my interviews in the interview playlist. Would love for your feedback. I've interviewed a number of animators over the years, so definitely check that out. And please follow me on all the socials, Rachel's Reviews. Please, if you are listening on iTunes, leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps so much. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate that so much. We also have the Patreon group, which is the biggest way you can support everything I do, and you can be a part of episodes. You can request reviews, things like that. Take a look. And then also have the merch store where you get hashtag animation junkie shirts, and I'm an animation girl. Check that out. And thanks again. We'll talk to you later. Bye.